Welcome to Conversations. I am Uzoamaka J. This is the second episode of Conversations, and with me here is Mr. Wahab Shina Omoniyi, who is also a public finance professional and the past chairman of the Association of National Accountants of Nigeria, Abuja branch. Mr. Wahab is a fellow of Association of National Accountants of Nigeria and the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, among others. He's also an author of several books, and currently he is the head of fiscal and financial reporting of the Nigerian Geological Survey Agency here in Abuja. Welcome, Mr. Wahab. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me on this show.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Wahab, Nigeria is a kind of, will I say, chaotic, and with it, a lot of people are struggling to make even as it is. So I want to ask you, how do you see Nigeria today? How ordinary people are making life out of what Nigeria has become?
Thank you very much. I think we have to also have memory of our history. Because of the lack of institutional memory, it makes us to, most of the time, react to happenings around us. Don't forget that what has brought about what you are experiencing now is the singular removal of the oil subsidy because of the multiplier effect of oil consumption in every household of Nigeria. And immediately that pronouncement was made, you could easily see the multiplier effect of it. But again, the government had no choice than to go the route which it went. Unfortunately, we have to bear the brunt of the consequences of that singular action. And that is why we are where we are today. So, it's not actually strange, if you ask me. Because if you also remember, even in sometime around 2014, the former CBN governor, in person of Lamido Sanusi, made a lot of, complaints about what was being experienced then. The same thing with Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. They've seen what will be the effect of the way the oil activities, are being managed as at sometime 2013, 2014. But unfortunately, the real issue has not been addressed until 2023, when the new government came on board. Though the outgoing government then has actually removed the subsidy, technically, because there was no provision in the 2024 budget as far as not even the 2023 budget as far as subsidy was concerned. So they only tried to manage it up to June 2023. They only made provision up to June 2023. That was the only provision they made. So they too are projected that by June 2023, there won't be anything like subsidy any longer. So, but unfortunately, we have to face what we didn't prepare for. And that was what caused, the financial chaos that we find ourselves in.
But how do you think that government, which didn't think of the effect, especially in the everyday people, the tomato seller, the sachet water seller, how they will take this effect of subsidy removal before actually removing it. So how do you think that government should have taken into consideration how the lower class of Nigerians, how they will take it?
Yes, thank you very much. Every sane person believes that that should have been the order of the day. That should have been what should have been provided for, because to cushion the effect of that removal. But you know, at times you find yourself in a situation where, yes, you ought to have taken certain action in the past, but for one reason or the other, it was not taken, and yet you have to progress, you have to move forward. And don't also forget that government, in its own wisdom, also came up with some a kind of palliative, with some reforms by intervening in some critical areas of our life. You look at the education government when they route to see how they can intervene so that the student can have access, to loan, so that the effect will not make them not to, access their education, which is critical. And then there is also this vulnerable fund intervention, which government been is looking at the vulnerable people in the society, and I think something about 20,000 that they are giving to them, So it's not really that government has not been doing anything, but it's just that what government has been doing has not really made so much impact for it to look so significant. So that is just the challenge we're having.
Because in the previous administration, we had trader money.
Yeah.
When the vice president was sharing 10,000, and that 10,000 that he was sharing to the market men and women couldn't even buy a mudu of gari or a mudu of rice. So if it didn't work that time, how do you think that government, in their own wisdom, sharing 20,000 will cushion the effect of the fuel subsidy that was removed? And how many people do you think that 20,000 will help?
Okay, thank you very much. There will always be problem as far as human activity is concerned. And then you just have to start solving the problem. And there is nowhere all over the world where, problems and challenges are completely eradicated. Nowhere. But again, you have to look at what you have, because it's all about capacity, financial-wise. What is the available fund that you can use to cushion the effect? Don't forget, you have different sectors of the economy that need intervention. You talk about power, which is also very critical, because in fact, solving the power challenge alone will have a serious multiplier effect, to cushion most of all this hardship that we are experiencing in the country. So you have the low income earner, the artisans, and the rest. An average weather cannot even afford, the AGO, which is the diesel they use in powering, their machines to work. So, but if the power sector has actually, been taken care of, you will discover that the cost of production will actually be minimal for them, and that will trickle down to, their take-home pay at the end of the day. So, coming back to, your will I say your worries as to why should we still be doing things that we did before, and it didn't have much impact, and why can't we go another route? So you just discover that you have a new government in place, and then it has to also do assessment of what happened in the past. And then now I agree with you that ordinarily anybody would think if something you did yesterday did not give you the desired result as anticipated, you need to go another route. But again, it also depends on the capacity. Government has limited resources and is working on the available resources to take care of every sector of the economy. And you cannot just abandon a particular sector and concentrate on, you know, a particular sector. You have to look at the economy holistically, and that is how things works. So, from that perspective, you will agree with me that government business is not as easy as we may think until when you know, you are part of it and then you do the analysis and you have the facts. Because most of the time we don't have the facts. So we only react based on those things that concerns us that you are not getting. If you are getting it, you will not even have the notion that things are not working. As we speak, there are those that are benefiting from the current reforms, and they are benefiting well. So such category of people will not want to agree with you that things are not working. So, and that is the challenge. The fund is not going anywhere. Money is not going anywhere. The money is only just circulating and kind of. So what you can do is to see how you can redistribute this money in such a way that it will touch every life, so that it will not solely concentrate in one aspect or one sector of the economy. And that is one of the main business of government.
Yeah, of course, the reforms may be benefiting some people and it may not be benefiting a lot of people. And of course, government also supposed to take into consideration a larger percentage number of people to be taken care of. And then, and based on that, even with the reforms, World Bank released a report, I think last week or so, recently, that 139 people are living in poverty despite these reforms. Previously, yet under the previous administration, the National Bureau of Statistics released a report that 133 million people we are living in multidimensional poverty. So, how are we progressing if these reports are even stating that all these reforms are not getting anywhere?
Okay, thank you very much. I think there is something we need to understand, especially where you have a kind of a recession. You are talking about a situation where things has gone so bad, and then you put on some measures to ameliorate the situation, and then things start picking up. But before things will start to pick up, you need to stabilize. It's just like maybe a medical, area where you need to stabilize a patient before you can even administer the proper medical dose. So if you don't stabilize the patient, so whatever you give to the patient may not give the desired result at the end of the day. So I think what government has done is to first look at how do we even stabilize the economy, looking at how bad things has gone. So after stabilization, that is when we can now be talking about, okay, let's grow this economy. So, and I believe that is the area we are going now. So the effect of what has happened in the past 2 years thereabout has been so much that there are people that have, one way or the other, maybe lost their livelihood, maybe they've lost their job, because even some of the private sector too could not really, manage, their business as it ought to be. So that also affected so much, because if you're having a staff, maybe you have a staff of maybe 10 before that period, and then you discover that the cost of maybe the personnel cost, for instance, right, you need to jack it up. So the option you may have will be maybe you retrench by downsizing, your workforce, and then maybe you downsize to about 6. So the 4 people that become unfortunate within that bracket will fall into that category of poverty metrics that you are talking about. And these are the issues. So now it has affected so much families that the multiplier effect is what we are now seeing at the macro level. And then for those that maybe one way or the other, like the startups, the small business enterprise, that you can just put some flours and some ingredients together, bake your, meat pie, small chops, and the rest, and then get some people to patronize you. But along the line, you discover that, the cost of the production has increased exponentially, and then it's becoming so difficult for you to break even. So you get discouraged from even running such business, and then it also affects your own economic capacity. So these are the multiplier effects that has, generated up to the level that we've seen. So, but I believe that things has become stabilized, and by the time the next statistic is being brought out, I think it will be a better figure that we'll be getting.
At 65, you are still saying that Nigeria is like a hospital, that a patient that needs to be stabilized. The economy needs to be stabilized. But you can't tell the ordinary man in the market that the economy is being stabilized, because he does not understand it. And for how long will this economy be stabilized, like a patient in the hospital? And when do we even start to see progress and development? Since if we are still stabilizing since 65 years of our national age.
Thank you very much. You see, when we talk about economic stabilization, you are looking at, those interventions that you've brought, into the sectors of the economy to make them work better. Do you get it now? And it is not just about the age, just like woman. It's not about how old we are, just like anybody can fall sick. So it's not about, this person is 20 years old, this person is 40 years old. Somebody can be 100 years old, and throughout, his lifespan, he has not, experienced any serious ailment. And then you can have someone that is just 20 years old, and then for one reason or the other, maybe socio-cultural or ecological factor will have affected that. So there are so many factors that, make the economy to go into recess. And at the same time, you have to bring other, interventions to pull such economy out of such recession. And that is what stabilization is talking about. So you now need to intervene. You bring all manner of intervention, metrics that can assist, to help the economy to, to be out of that recession. So that is what we are talking about. So to ordinary market woman, of course, they just want to see that, okay, I take my product to the market and I'm able to sell. And from the proceeds of my, sales, I'm also able to pay my children's school fees, able to buy other things that I will also need, for my own survival. So that is the way an ordinary person, or a market woman will think. And it is normal, it is natural. Do you get it now? So it is now the responsibility of those shadow with governance to let them understand what has happened in the past, what they are doing currently, and then give them hope. Because at times you may be doing so much, but because people still don't have that trust, because as far as our society is concerned, there's this trust deficit. So no matter what you are doing, if you don't give them that, hope that there will be light at the end of the tunnel, so they will still not see what you are doing. Because to be fair to, those in government, most of the time they are doing so much, but what they are doing are not well communicated. And as long as what they are doing are not well communicated, people don't know what they are doing. So, and once I don't know what you are doing, you don't blame me for not appreciating you. So I think that is one area. Again, people want to see the multiplier effect of all this stabilization, okay, all this jargon of English that we are speaking. They want to see it that they are not hungry. Because no matter what you say, if they are hungry, then to them, I think there is nothing like growth, there's nothing like stabilization. Because they want to see it practically, they want to experience it practically. So it is normal for them to feel that way, for them to think that way. But in reality, you discover that there are still people, there are still, reasonable size of the population, that have started seeing improvement, in the economy.
Now that we are talking about the market person having to understand, or the communication wasn't really done well, even with the reforms, even with the sharing of the 20,000, that many people, we don't even know how many people that have received, or how do we measure those that have received? Because if government is doling out money to market people or whatever, in as much as it cannot cushion the effect of the financial chaos in the society, we do not know how many people that have received to at least say that government is doing well or government is not doing well. But hence, nothing of sort is provided. Nobody knows who has collected. Of course, even if government is communicating well, as long as there is no practical or physical experience, of course, government will be said that to not be doing something.
Okay, thank you very much. You see, one of the major problems we have in our society is paucity of data. If I ask you, do we even have accurate data? We don't. So, and I think that is the area we need to focus on more. You see, it has always been a kind of mirage to even ascertain, the level of intervention, because in the first instance, how do you even capture people that you don't have their records? So when you have record, if you ask me today, or if I ask you, even in your village, what is your population? I believe you cannot tell me, because we don't have accurate data. And without accurate data, planning is always difficult. So when you plan, you discover that yes, you plan, and then at the end of the day, you've used the wrong data to plan. And then when it comes to execution, you are experiencing a different thing altogether. These are part of the challenges. So the area we should focus on now should be, okay, how do we even get the accurate data so that people can, if you say you are intervening, definitely the people that are benefiting are not ghosts. They are human beings and they are known. Do you get it now? But as we speak, there are people that if anything happens to them, the society doesn't know them. And there is no way you can even say something happened to them because they are not captured. And I believe, something is being done in that direction. So we must look at, having accurate data for us to be able to even talk about, the people that benefited and people that didn't benefit. Because if somebody just come out now that I benefit, what do you want to use as yardstick, as a kind of means of verification? Do you get it now? But where there is accurate data, the person has a bank account, right? The money is paid to the person's account, right? So there's no need for you to even call anybody to come and testify because the data will speak for itself, right? But because there's no data, you have a lot of people that are unbanked as we speak. So, and such people, no matter how much you pump to them, how do you want to accurately capture them? It will be difficult. So, these are part of the challenges that we have. So, statistic, yes, it is only the former. Most of the time, we try to look at the former, the former sector, and then that is what we use. Because the informal sector, most of the time, you cannot get accurate data from them. So there's no way you can use them for your, a kind of a statistical analysis. So these are part of the issues because you need to, name the issue on the board so that, you will be able to understand what is even the foundational challenge. And then when you understand the foundational challenge, then you'll be able to know, okay, so what can we do to, if it is to intervene, if it is to manage, if it is to do whatever to ameliorate, the impact that you are either experiencing or envisaging. It will also aid you in all of this decision making.
Now, getting on to the unemployment. You mentioned 10 people or 6 people being catered to, and then 4 people being pushed into the unemployment field, and the continuous rising in the unemployment number. Well, I remember, although I don't remember because I didn't benefit from that, I heard that there was at a certain point in the life of this country, maybe immediately after the independence or so, that as soon as somebody is graduating from the school, there are companies that are waiting, ready to absorb them. And we have not, in my generation, we have not really experienced such. So you see somebody looking for employment for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Some people will not even find, and then they end up into underemployment, which is also part of our problem. So how do you think that government will get us out of this?
Yes, thank you very much. I think government is not unaware of these challenges because when you talk about government, you see, you and I, though some people are there on our behalf, to lead us, to give us direction, and to implement certain things, that will be beneficial to the entire society. Now, when you are comparing the maybe the immediate post-independence era to the current era that we have, you must have some variables that you need to use. For instance, let's look at it from the point of population. What was the population then, right? And what is the population now? You are talking about a period that we were less than 100 million as a people, and then today we are talking about a population of close to 300, even though we cannot, like I said, we cannot specifically ascertain, but it's just an estimate. So there's no way as at that period, most of these companies, they were waiting for, who to absorb, to run the business for them. But today, you discover that everywhere is saturated already. Even about 10 years ago, I think even the graduating students that were available for mobilization used to be like the batch A and batch B, right? Maybe early in the year and late during the year. But today you have, I can't even count, because you have batch A, stream 1, stream 2, at time you have maybe stream 3, I don't know. So you just be hearing that some people are coming out of the camp, some people are being mobilized to the camp. So that is to tell you the level of increase in our population. Unfortunately, the educational system is structured in such a way that is making most of the students to be graduating to go into white collar employment. So it's not really the one that is looking at, okay, how can the skills be built in such a way that they can also create jobs. So everybody is just being certificated. We are just all about, okay, get the certificate, let's look for a job. So we are not looking at, okay, let's hand the skill. Let's acquire the skill and then let's create the job. So which is the direction we should be going. And I think about a week ago, if I'm not mistaken, I think I heard something that has to do with that, where government is looking at, okay, there should be a kind of skill development that even as we are graduating students, so before they graduate, they should graduate with certain skill. And I'm also aware that even at the secondary school level now, the curriculum is being amended in such a way that every pupil, right, and every student, should have a kind of skill that is being studied, because that's the way it should go. If you look at the people that have really made serious disruption in the system, like the Chinese, you discover that they focus more on production. So we also need to look at that direction, and that is the only way that can pull us out of this mess that we find ourselves. So, and I believe government is also doing that from some of the reforms that are coming out presently.
Given the plenty population, let me use that plenty, because Nigeria is becoming overpopulated. But even that, we have enough resources if we concentrate on mining these resources that can cater to this population. But more so, a lot of companies recently, maybe in the last 10 to 5 years, started fleeing the country. How do you think, what do you make of it?
Yes, thank you very much. Everyone wants to go into business to make profit. Every business, right? And how do you even make profit in the first instance? You only make profit when your cost of production is lower than the fund you employ into the business. So that is the only way you can make a profit. But where your cost of production outweigh, the the benefit, the revenue or the turnover, so definitely you'll be running into loss. And nobody wants to stay in the business because the objective of going to business in the first instance is to make profit. So over the years, the cost of production has actually increased, and that affected most of these companies to operate successfully. And one factor that affected the cost of production has to do with power, right? So Nigeria has the market, but the challenge is just the cost of production. Personnel cost, yes, is still okay. Apart from, the trust element. Because in Nigeria of today, when you want to run any business, the person you are engaging today is also thinking of, in the next 3 months, how to buy iPhone 17, even though our salary is just maybe 70,000 naira.
The minimum wage.
The minimum wage. And yet, the person is thinking of buying, phone of 1 point something million naira. So it also has to do with, the orientation and the mentality. Do you get it now? So, and that is a serious issue that we need to look at, because it has to do with our national value, right? So where you cannot, as I am now, I can't say, okay, I want to run a business. If I'm not there, I have, a capable hand that, can run that business, So people don't have that trust, So beside that, so like I said, the power issue has actually increased the cost of production. And these companies look at, okay, maybe neighboring countries where they can operate, with a lesser cost. And that informed their decision to move to places like Ghana, Benin Republic, and what have you. So, but the good news is, I think sometime, was it not just this morning, I read, in the news that I can't remember whether it's Michelin or Dunlop, that they also have not really verified to know how authentic the news is. But that's to give you hope that, things are getting better. But also, sometime last week, there are some investors that came and then they engaged the government. So these are people that have not thought of investing in Nigeria for many years, but now they are looking at how to come and invest in various sectors of the economy. That's another good news. And you can imagine the multiplier effect when it comes to job creation that this will be, for us. So it's going to be at our own advantage. And then you look at even the Dangote refinery thing, leave it or take it. You discover that it has actually impacted positively in the economy. So you cannot rule out that fact, because a lot of people will be engaged in one thing or the other. Let's even just isolate the community where that refinery is situated. You will discover that as long as that refinery is there, the livelihood of that community has actually increased. And on daily basis, they have people that will patronize their businesses. So if you now have like Dangote refinery, maybe in every geopolitical zone of the country, So you can see what the multiplier effect will be at the end of the day. So I want to believe, yes, in the past, companies are moving out, but Ali, we are getting good news that things are getting better and they are coming in. So, like I said earlier, so we should be expecting growth. I think that's where we should be positive minded as far as the economy is concerned. Yes, it is affecting me. It's affecting the people around me. But we don't have any other option than, to see what we can contribute and get it better. So I think that's just the way to do.
Thank you for answering. Now we move to the next sector, tax. And as a fellow of Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, I have come so that you educate us about the new tax laws. There are 4 laws,
Yeah.
and a lot of us don't actually know what they are all about.
Thank you very much. It is part of the, deliberate decision by the government, to also stabilize and grow the economy that they come up with, the tax reform. And the tax reform is a kind of a 4-in-1 bill that was submitted and eventually passed and assented to by the president, which are now acts of the parliament. So you have the Joint Revenue Board Act of Establishment Act of 2025. Then you have the Nigerian Revenue Service Establishment Act of 2025. You have the Nigerian Tax Act 2025. And the fourth one is the Nigeria Tax Administration Act 2025. So these 4-in-1 laws, are to look at various areas, right, that we, assist in both revenue generation. As you know, government depend more on taxing for generating their revenue, as well as, making sure that there's a kind of sustainability, consistency and sustainability. Because before now, you discover that you can't even know which tax is being taxed by who, and government is looking at, okay, why can't we harmonize most of all these things? And that is the areas the Joint Revenue board will be looking at, that, okay, all the internal revenue service of the federation at the state level, they come together, they agree that, okay, these are, the way we want to do things, so that if you go from Kogi State to Katsina State, you will not be faced with different, tax. So that is what they are looking at, and that is one thing that that particular act is trying to address. It's also looking at where you have, the satisfaction, the ombudsman, aspect of it, that we look at, okay, instead of us even going to court all the time, litigation, why can't we settle some things out of court? So there is a section that is also looking at that. And then when you look at the Nigerian Revenue Service Act, the composition and the powers, there will be misconception here and there as to, okay, the revenue service, even though I'm not speaking for them, will be the one to be collecting everything. But again, what government is trying to do, to the best of my knowledge, is to make sure everything is streamlined. Because like we said earlier, when you don't have accurate data, it will be difficult for you to plan. If you are having income and you cannot ascertain your income simply because you don't have control over it at any point in time, so it will be very difficult for you to also make well-informed decision at any point in time. So it delays and slow down decision making. So government is looking at how to, harmonize, consolidate, some of this arrangement so that you can easily have a single pipe that you can use to, have your revenue data. I think that is what government is looking at. Then when you look at the whole thing holistically, look at the tax itself. A lot of people are talking about maybe government has put that in place to tax people the more. But I think government has always explained that this tax system is progressive and it is to the advantage of the common man. And I will give you an instance. Before now, if you look at the one that concerns you and I, which is the personal income tax, if you look at the rate before, you look at the rate that starts from 7%, the first 300, 7%, then the next 300, 11%, and then the next 500, you have 14%, up to the anything that is above 3,000 to 3,200,000, 24%. But what you have now is that you now have a kind of progressive tax system whereby up to 800,000 naira is tax free.
Yeah.
So up to 800,000 is tax free. So is anything from 800,000 now, right, that you now start applying the 50%. And when you look at the minimum wage earners, you will discover that they will fall within the lower bracket. So which means most of them, because if you calculate, for instance, the 70,000 minimum wage, if someone is earning 70,000, when you multiply that by 12, that's just about 7 and something thousand. Is even lesser than the 800,000. So which means they are completely exempted from tax. But from the previous one, you discover that, after the consolidated arrangement of maybe 20% of gross income plus 200,000. So whichever that is higher, that government always pick. So you discover that this one still favors the low income earner than the previous tax arrangement. So I think that is the area that we need to go. There are so many things as far as the tax reform is concerned, which the good thing about the tax reform is that the act itself made provision for the implementer of the laws to carry out certain things, because it has emphasized that there will be a kind of necessity that we may not be seen as at the time these laws are being put together, and that is why there will be a lot of guidelines as to how certain things should be done, even though the effective date will be 1st of January 2026. There are still certain areas that the law has provided that at the instance of those shadow with governance, they will do. And I'll give you an instance. There was a time, sometime last month, when people were talking about this surcharge. The surcharge, I think, contained the chapter 7 of the NTA. So the surcharge is just talking about the charge for the 5% charge on fuel, and there are categories of fuel that the surcharge is talking about, right? So, and the law made provision that it's going to be when the minister deem it fit. Do you get it now? So, to start collecting. So, which means it is when the minister has observed that, there won't be chaos when such money is being collected as tax. So, you can't really tell. It may be 2026, it may be 2027, and who knows, the minister may still, the circumstance may not still warrant the collection up to 2030. So that is to tell you, in the wisdom of those that put the laws together, that they've emphasized certain things.
How does the government think that the ordinary man in the street will be captured? And how do they think they will make this revenue? Will they capture everybody from the street, or do we walk into the tax office to pay our taxes? How do they?
Thank you very much. There's what we call self-assessment in taxation, whereby on your own is a kind of voluntary, arrangement, where you don't need to be compelled, to disclose your income. We should also not forget that what is being taxed is earned income, be it individual or company. So where you don't earn, you don't pay tax. So it is when you earn an income and it falls into the categories that is tax accessible that they can now assess your tax. So in all of this, we've talked about we not having accurate data, and that is why government in its wisdom is also encouraging the citizen that, okay, we don't need to come and knock at your door. Come forward, tell us, I'm doing so business. This is what I'm earning. In fact, not only to tell us what you're earning, you do the assessment yourself, that I'm earning 1 million naira, and from the provision of the law, I'm supposed to pay so tax, and this is the tax. Government, take your money.
But Nigerians are not they are not wired into that.
Yes, that is the area of patriotism that we should be looking at.
So what will the government do?
Yes, government will continue the sensitization, giving encouragement, because when it costs less when you do that than for government to still spend money to come and enforce. Do you understand now? And government has also, through the relevant authorities, tried to do sensitization where necessary. Government even try to have a kind of incentive that, okay, if you do this, this is what you get as incentive, so as to encourage the taxpayers. So government has been doing that. The relevant tax authorities have been doing that. Yes, what they are doing may not really be sufficient enough, but that is the way to go. And then by the time the proper data is got to you, discover that it makes everything easier, right? And then don't also forget that that's why government is encouraging everyone to have TIN, the tax identification number, which will be linked to your national identity. So that at any point in time, you can say, okay, this is what you are doing, this is what you are earning. But again, it doesn't mean that whatever you have in the bank, government will tax it. No. So it is what you earn, maybe as profit, that is that income. Do you get it now? So the government is taxing. It's not just your money that you have, because there have been this argument and controversy as to, oh, maybe I will take my money, out of the bank so that government will not tax it. If the money is in the bank, and then maybe there is interest, right, on the amount in the bank, that is an earned income now. So the interest is what government will tax if it's actually fall within the accessible bracket. Do you get it now? So it is not what you have that will be taxed. So it is whatever that is generated, as income from that depending on if it actually now fall within the taxable bracket that will be taxed.
Is there any provision for jail?
Yes, there's no law that does not make provision for deterrent. There are sanctions, when the law has said, okay, you do so thing. So there are also penalties for non-compliance. And that is why government is encouraging voluntary compliance. Reasonably, government is encouraging voluntary compliance. So, but where you now fail to comply, you now discover that the penalty ranges from maybe 5,000 naira maybe per month till when you comply, and in some instances has to do with J10, right? In some instances you pay huge amount for no compliances. So the offenses differ as well as the penalties too. So the offense will determine the penalty, and all these things are contained in the law. So it is all about what the law says. It's not about maybe somebody doesn't like your face. So you have it, you see the content in the law, and then it's not left for you to say, okay, let me voluntarily comply. Or if you don't comply, then you will be ready to bear the consequences of the penalties and sanctions.
Thank you for sharing your time with us.
Thank you for having me.
And we have been talking with Mr. Wahab Shina Omoniyi, who is a public finance professional. Thank you, Mr. Omoniyi, for joining the show. I am Uzoamaka J. We hope that you join us in the next episode of The Conversations. Thank you for watching. Thank you.